So when I was in 7th grade, I was at a New Year's Eve party with some of my friends and having a good time. At this point, we used to sag our pants. This was back in the day. I was sagging my pants and they were going down pretty low. Didn't think much of it. And that's when my 7th grade bully noticed me doing this. I was kind of doing a silly dance in front of a girl that I had a crush on. At that point, he decided to, what we called shanking at the time. He pulled down my pants. So I'm standing there in my boxers, whatever, no big deal. I wasn't really that fazed. Then he took it a step further and he pulled down my underwear. And that was the first time my little prepubescent dick was shown, and it was in front of my crush. And of course, at the time, I was very small, and that stuck around because I'm from a small town, and up until I basically transferred high schools, that I was the boy with the little dick. So thanks for tuning in today. I'm going to be talking about a little bit about my background. I'm going to be talking about my experiences that drove me to PE, basically why I do it, and then also why I have kind of taken on this persona as Hink, and basically why I make posts to try to help the community, as well as what my goals are for the community in general. If you find this interesting, check it out. There's some pretty interesting stories, I think. And so, like I said, when I was in 7th grade, I had both my pants and underwear pulled down. I did not hit puberty until I was about a junior in college. And so I've always been a late bloomer, and especially at this point, rumor quickly got around the school that I, in fact, had a very small penis, which at the time I did. At that point, I certainly was not sexually active in any kind of way, shape, or form, so I didn't really worry about it. You know, it did suck when I'd hear rumors pop up, but, you know, not too much I can do about that. Towards the end of my high school years, I actually transferred high school, so I went to a new high school. At this point, so I'm a pretty big guy, so I was about 6'2", 6'3" at the time. Still had not really hit puberty. I had zero facial hair, had very limited even pubic hair at the time, and there was a girl I dated. We were in science class, and so I know it's kind of hard to tell because these are black and white videos, but I'm black, okay? It's in the US, it's a bit complicated, but I'm black even though I'm very light-skinned. And so we're in class, and one of the kind of class clowns asked the science teacher, why do black guys always have big dicks? And she proceeds to shout very loudly, well, not all of them, and then looks right over at me. Rumors continued to swirl that I did not have, in fact, a large penis, and in fact, not only that, I had a small penis. And so wasn't really sexually active at the time that much. Didn't really bother me, and I figured, you know, once I hit puberty, it'll finally start growing. So this continued into college. There was a girl I met in college, a nice girl, ended up hooking up with her. You know, we started getting physical, my dick came out, and then she said, oh yeah, I'm not surprised. And I was like, well, you know, what does that mean? She said, oh yeah, well, I could tell you had a pretty small dick by how it looked in basketball shorts when I would see you in the cafeteria. I was like, oh, okay. And so that's really when things started to actually fuck with me, because I was actually getting into my adult years and actually starting to become a little sexually active. Another girl ended up becoming my girlfriend at the school. You know, girls can be mean, everybody can be mean. I'm sure she didn't mean it intentionally, but she would frequently comment on like the rumors about the guys in college that had the big dicks. Clearly that was not me. And so that would really start to fuck with me. So we ended up breaking up. But my junior year, I ended up growing about another inch. It wasn't like all of a sudden, but it was between basically my sophomore and junior year. I ended up going, about an inch bigger. And so I was finally larger than average, but not that much larger than average. And once again, at this point, I was about 6'4", 6'5", and I had stopped physically growing, but my dick was just above average. The girls that I would meet definitely did not say that I was big. Many of them, they would say that they kind of imply that it was small, especially for my size. These are younger, more immature girls. I was in college, but that really started to fuck with me too. And so when I got to med school, once again, I was decent sized, but I was still very, very tall. And once again, there's that, you know, BBC myth that follows any person of color around. And so I ended up dating a girl. She was really short. She was like maybe 5 feet tall. And so we were at med school one day. One of the guys in the class was like, came up and was kind of joking with us and was like, damn girl, like, how do you even walk? Implying like, how does she walk after sexual intercourse with me? And she was very quick to say, oh, he's not that big. I was just like, fuck me, man. So, you know, when you keep hearing this shit over and over again, you know, I was blessed to the point where I was above average at this point, but then to have it like constantly reiterated that you're not that big, it really fucks with you. And I'm sure many people watching this video or in our subreddit would have killed to be bigger than average, or even just average. And I do feel for you, man. And so even through medical school, as I continued, and even through part of my residency, it was constantly this like I'll never forget. I was hooking up with a girl, and little man came out, and she said, oh, I always thought it would be bigger. And it's just like, fuck, like, are you serious right now? It's like, I still can't believe it was real life, but that's what happened. And then finally, when I was actually early in my residency, this is one of the last like kind of negative stories, but one of the girls I hooked up with, we had just finished, and she was like, I'm so glad you're the perfect size. I hate when they're big. And I was like, thanks, that feels really great. And so basically those are some of the experiences from my childhood that kind of made me extremely insecure about my penis size. And on top of that, I've always been the definition of a grower. In my flaccid state, it can literally like almost turtle inside, especially after vigorous athletic activity. But at baseline, I was probably around 2 inches flaccid, maybe 3 inches on a good day if it's warm outside. That's what people see. That's the imprint that people see. And so all my life, there's kind of, even now, some of my high school friends will still make references to me having a little dick, or like joke with me about that. But I hated going into urinals. I hated changing clothes in the gym. It really messed with me. And so there's something called like dysmorphia. I'm sure you guys already know about it, or small penis syndrome. And it's actually like a clinical diagnosis is when it actually like fucks with your quality of life and actually has impact on your life. Not just like, oh, I wish my dick was bigger. And that's what happened with me. Like there was even some girls that I broke up with because they either implied that they wanted a bigger dick or had mentioned that like their ex-lovers had been bigger in the past. And even things like watching movies when they would like make a joke about some guy having a big dick, like American Pie, or even if they would show like a picture of a big dick, like in that one like spy movie with Jason Statham and somebody else, there was like a huge dick that like flashes on the screen, or like Gone Girl at the end of Gone Girl and Ben Affleck is nude. Like those would all like totally fuck with me, like ruin my day. Jesus, especially if I was watching those movies with a girl, it would be devastating. And I know that's a me problem, and I should have had psych counseling and talked to somebody about it. It is what it is, and I honestly don't know how much that would have helped me, and especially being a very large guy and having expectations that oh, he's a very large guy with very large hands and large feet, he probably has a huge dick, and then not. It was tough for me. Once again, I feel for the other guys that are even smaller, below average, even micro penis. I'm sorry. But once again, this is my experience. And so what did I do? Well, I'm a person that I've always tried to do something about it. And so the first thing I did was buy penis enlargement pills. Yes, I bought penis enlargement pills twice and expected them to work. And obviously they did not. And so I started to think this didn't work. And then I came across an ad for an extender one time. It's like a shitty little Chinese made extender that I got off eBay for like $9.99. And I tried that for like a month and I did not get any results. And of course, like the website was like, oh, use this extender, you'll get 1 inch in 1 month or something unbelievable like that. And so when I didn't get those results, I thought it wasn't possible and I had pretty much given up hope. And fortunately, the girl I'm currently with didn't care about the size of my dick, so it was kind of a moot point. Then one fateful day, I came across the More Plates, More Dates video by Derek, and it was talking about Bathmate and the Phalloson Forte. Now that day, I went out and I bought the Bathmate, and I started doing manual stretches when I came across the Good Looking Losers website. The rest, as they say, is history. So then I went from the Bathmate sub on Reddit to A Jelp For You, with shout outs to that whole sub and M9 and all those guys that helped me so much. And then I came across Getting Bigger with BD, and now we are where we are. Honestly, Getting Bigger has made such a huge impact on my life as far as like my quality of life. Like I can actually laugh at like when people are like, oh, you have a little dick. I'm just like, yeah, that's pretty funny now. Now, like I don't get worried about watching, movies. I still get triggered sometimes. Like there was a scene in like Sex and Love where this guy has like this huge prosthetic, like 10-inch flaccid dick. Definitely have not watched that with my significant other or anything. But in general, quality of life is much better. I have a much better understanding. And in being in this sub, I not only learned how to get bigger, but I also learned about like real size statistics. And so BD has a great video on that. Many others have made posts about it, as have I, about what truly is the average size, what kind of standard deviation breakdown there is. And so all that has helped as well as learning that porn stars aren't as big as I initially thought, or as big as they want you to think. Porn stars are not like 12 inches long. A lot of that is light tricks and angling tricks, and yes, they are very large penises, but you'd be surprised how many of them are actually below 7 inches in length. Anyways, all of that helped with my dysmorphia and getting over that. Basically, that brings us to now. I know I've talked about this before, and this is going to be the last time I mention it because it really doesn't matter, but yeah, I actually am a medical doctor. And so when I first started on these subs, I was reading about these posts and people like, oh yeah, you need to do this, you need to do that. And some of this shit was just medically very unsound, like fucking dangerous. And this is even before I really researched into PE, and I do not have a urology background, but I was just like blown away. And not only that, people would like, oh yeah, this is what you need to do based on, in some cases, nothing, or based on what they read at Thunder's place. But amount of people that would like follow that and then want to emulate that kind of blew my mind. And that's when I started really trying to bring a more scientific approach. And there were others obviously before me, but that's what I wanted my focus to be, is because I've been trained in medicine, and at the very least I know how to just research and I know how to apply data and, in my opinion, analyze the data. That's what I wanted to bring to the sub. And then started posting some articles that I found, like one, for example, showing that extenders work, and like, here's a randomized trial showing that extenders can actually increase length by, up to an inch in a year, things like that. And I thought that was bringing a level of validation rather than just kind of anecdotal, like, oh, here's my before and after, which is obviously helpful. And so that's where I started. And then I realized that there was very limited information on injuries. And so I know M9 and the A Joke For You sub, they have like a wiki, and in it they talk about kind of brief excerpts of different injuries, but nobody had really done an in-depth dive on injuries. And so I thought that would be a decent contribution. And that's when like my popularity, or whatever you want to call it, really took off. And I made a big injuries post going through and detailing, these are the different injuries that can occur, what are the symptoms, what are the treatments, what are the causes, what do they look like. And so I remember that post, and I wasn't expecting really anything, and it ended up getting like, over like 200 upvotes or whatever that may be. And I realized how helpful it was when people said, thank you in the comments, or would message me. And so I really wanted to kind of gear what I do towards towards injuries, either injury prevention or injury treatment, and in general to help PE be safer, and finally to bring more science to it, to make it not more mainstream, but to make it more believable. There's so many people who think it doesn't work because that's what, most doctors say, is like, oh, it doesn't work, it's impossible. I wanted to tackle this from a scientific approach and say, yes, this works, this is why it works, and this is how it works. I think I've had some pretty good impact in the subs, and so it's always validating when I see people either quote something that I say or make reference to a study that I've posted. And also a lot of guys actually will message me separately and say they've seen my results, or they've seen that the post that I've made about PE and that you can do it safely, and it's encouraged them to start, and they've made gains, and it's changed their life. And it's honestly pretty amazing, because as cliche as this sounds, and I'm sure some of my not so much fans will criticize me for this, but I literally, the reason why I went into medicine is to help people. And like BD says, helping guys get over their insecurities, I know the difference that it's made for me. And that's the impact that I'd like to give to others, is to be able to experience growth and to do it safely, so they can basically improve their quality of life. As far as what do I have left to do, I don't know. I mean, I still want to bring more science into this community. I still would like to have, ultimately I would love to have like a legitimate medical resource based on like different not different PE studies, but different medical trials that I can basically publish as more definitive evidence that even if you were to take this to a urologist, they would be like, okay, this is all medically sound, like this is actually legit. And so I'd like to do that at some point. Ultimately, I would love to have my own clinical trial where, I could say, X amount of subjects use an extender for this amount of time, then they pump for this amount of time, and these were the results in 1 year. And actually have that published in like a journal of urology or a medical journal. That's a stretch, because if you watch my video on why the scientific community will never basically endorse PE, that's never going to happen anytime soon, at least. And so maybe even just my own little mini trial on getting bigger. Well, I take 10 participants and we have a basic routine, and then all participants are willing to post before and afters, and we just post before and afters after the 6 months and after a year, to show guys, like in a more prospective trial setting, that this can be done. So anyways, guys, I know this was a lot of rambling. Thanks for listening. Hopefully this was helpful to some people. I always appreciate my supporters. For the people who criticize me, I appreciate that too, because it helps me to get better, and oftentimes they bring up valid points. And so follow me at Getting Bigger. Please check me out on YouTube, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.